All right, first and foremost, want to give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. And Shalom to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. It's your brother Kadah. And today I want to talk about a common thing that's spoken about in the world. People like to ask themselves, what would Jesus do? Right? And I think that's good to talk about, right? What would Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, do in today's world? If he walked the earth right now and he saw the affliction of his people, what do you think that he would do in today's world? And we're going to go through that with the scriptures, because a lot of people claim to know Yahweh. They claim to know the Most High, and they claim to know his son, Yahweh Shai. But we're going to prove through the scriptures that that's not the case, right? So let's kick it off with John chapter 6 and 38. We can get this in the KJV. For I came down from heaven, not to do mine own will, but the will of him that sent me. You see, when Christ walked the earth, he always spoke about doing the Father's will. Not his own will, but the Father's will. Christ, just like all creation, is subject to the will of the Most High. Christ is a God, but he's not the Most High God. So therefore, he has to follow orders given from the Most High so that his plans would be carried out on earth, right? And that's nothing new. And Christ isn't the only one that understood that. Even a wicked heathen understood that. And we can prove that. We can go to Numbers real quick to prove that. Right? So let's go to Numbers 24 and 13. If Balak would give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the commandment of the Lord to do either good or bad of mine own mind. But what the Lord saith, that will I speak. You see, this is the time where that wicked king, the king of Moab, wanted to curse the children of Israel because he knew he couldn't defeat them. So he hired Balaam. But even Balaam understood this. It's impossible to resist the will of the Most High. So when you're asking yourself, what would Christ do? You must first ask, what would the Most High do? Because he's the one calling the shots. By understanding prophecy, you will learn what Yahweh Shai is going to do next time he's here on earth. If the Most High sent him back right now, it wouldn't be to wipe away tears from all the heathen nations that have oppressed God's chosen people. That's for sure, right? But the reason why very few people understand this is because they're being deceived by false teachers who preach a prosperity-based doctrine for profit, right? Let's go to Ezekiel, Ezekiel 13, and I want this in the NLT. Okay, Son of man, prophesy against the false prophets of Israel who are inventing their own prophecies. Say to them, listen to the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. What sorrow awaits the false prophets who are following their own imaginations and have seen nothing at all. O people of Israel, these prophets of yours are like jackals digging in the ruins. They have done nothing to repair the breaks in the walls around the nation. They have not helped it to stand firm in battle on the day of the Lord. Instead, they have told lies and made false predictions. Then say, this message is from the Lord, even though the Lord never sent them, and yet they expect him to fulfill their prophecies. Right? You see, pastors in the Christian church have created their own prophecies concerning the last days, blaspheming the Most High by making him a liar and saying that the covenant made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is no longer valid, and that nations who oppress the children of Israel will go unpunished. These wicked pastors don't know what's going on. They don't know the scriptures, right? And even Yahweh Shai spoke about that, right? Let's go to Matthew 22 and 29. Yahweh Shai answered and said unto them, Ye do err, not knowing the scriptures, nor the power of God. And you see these false prophets, these Christian pastors don't know the scriptures, because if they did, they wouldn't prophesy of peace and safety for our enemies. The testimony of Christ is the spirit of prophecy. So for everyone who isn't well studied concerning the second coming of Christ, they don't have a clue about the end times, right? But now let's get back to Christ. With all that being said, what has the Most High said he would use Yahushua to do in these last days? All right. Let's go to Jeremiah. I want Jeremiah 30:14. All thy lovers have forgotten thee. They seek thee not, for I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one, for the multitude of thine iniquity, because thy sins were increased. Why criest thou for thine affliction? Thy sorrow is incurable for the multitude of thine iniquity. Because thy sins were increased, I have done these things unto thee. Therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and they that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. Man, that's powerful. All of our enemies will go into captivity, thus saith the Lord. So when Christ comes back, he can't do anything outside of the commandment given by the Most High. The Most High is sending Yahushua to save us from our enemies and wage war against our oppressors. So you don't have to ask yourself, what would Christ do? What would Christ do? It's already written what he's going to do. But you're in error right now for not knowing the scriptures and listening to these false prophets, these wicked pastors, right? Let's go to Matthew 24:30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Right? Christ is coming back with power. He's going to use that power to subdue all nations and gather the elect from the four corners of the earth and restore order. This is what Christ would do if he was here right now. And let's get another precept on that. Where I want to start at. Verse 11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he does judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahweh. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon the white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty Yahweh. Right? So Yahushua told us in Matthew 4:4 that man should not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Most High. That's why his name was called the Word of Yahweh. Christ is going to fulfill everything written long ago concerning the destruction of our enemies and the salvation of the 12 tribes of Israel, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Where do you think he'll get all the crowns from? These are heathen kingdoms from Nebuchadnezzar's vision that are being destroyed. Why do you think his garment will be dipped in blood? Because he will destroy Edom, like is written, right? And Genesis 49. He's going to march through Edom and stomp out every last Edomite, man, woman, and child, like Deborah saw in Judges, the 5th chapter. And if these things offend you, then you need to check your spirit. right? So let's go to Mark 3. But when he had turned about and looked on his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, Get thee behind me, Satan, for thou savorest not the things that be of Yahweh, but the things that be of men. So if these prophecies offend you, then you're of the devil, because you don't want the Most High's will to be done on earth. And you're honestly a coon, because you want to save the slave along with the slave master, right? So from here, let's go to Acts chapter 5. Let's start at 38. And now I say unto you, refrain from these men and let them alone. For if this counsel or this work be of men, it will come to naught. But if it be of Yahweh, ye cannot overthrow it, lest haply ye be found even to fight against Yahweh. So if you think I'm twisting the scriptures, or us black Hebrew Israelites are twisting the scriptures and promoting hate instead of the truth, then just wait and see. If I'm imagining vain things, if my brothers in the Hebrew Israelite community are imagining vain things and receiving false interpretations, then our counsel will come to naught. But when these prophecies come to pass in these last days, you will realize that a prophet had been among you and that you fought against the will of the Most High, right? So you got to examine yourself and check your spirit. And make sure you're not being led astray by these wicked pastors that don't teach, thus saith the Lord, that don't teach to the law and in the testimony, right? Let's go to Luke chapter 13, verse 2. And Yahushua answering said unto them, Suppose ye that these Galileans were sinners above all the Galileans, because they suffered such things? I tell you, nay. But except ye repent, ye shall all likewise perish. So if you think that only our enemies will be judged in these last days when Yahushua comes back, and you won't have to worry about death, you're wrong. Unless you repent, you will suffer the same fate as these wicked heathens. So you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans need to examine yourself, because you think that you know what Yahushua is going to do when he comes back, but you're really not ready for that great and terrible day of the Lord. You need to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments that are for our good and choose life. And with that, I want to give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua and Shalom.